Welcome into the Gig'em 24/7 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined as always on a Monday by Brian Perroni. Brian, just when it seems like this team has given all the surprises, we're left with more to discuss. We'll certainly dive into that from A&M's loss to Auburn on Saturday night, a 13-10 loss to the Tigers with an interim coach in Cadillac Williams, and falls to 3-7, and will now likely miss out on a bowl there.
I would say more. I would say it's more than likely they have
Yeah, more
seven.
than
They
likely. I
have
know.
seven
Yeah, I
lost,
know.
so they cannot make a bowl.
I know at 5-7, sometimes they get into all
Oh
that stuff,
yeah,
but
I don't know A
but
and
at
M's
this point,
APR, but do we think A and
yeah,
M's one of the best academic teams in the country?
probably not.
My guess is probably not.
Probably
So
not. So
yeah.
at this team is likely staring down missing a bowl, falling short of bowl eligibility. We'll get into that as well. In the direction of the program, there was a lot of questions for Jimbo Fisher on Monday afternoon about that. But starting off, Brian, just there with A&M falling to 3-7, their sixth straight loss. Just general reactions to this game.
So I mean, I have followed Texas A&M football for a while, but this is a new something new for me. Is it's the first 6-game losing streak since 1972. They went
Yep.
50 years. So I'd say it's not good, Bob. I mean, it's there are lots of I mean, okay, digging into the games, yeah, Devon A Chain was missing. Moose Muhammad was missing, which I think we'll talk about, but he didn't need to be missing, and that's just I think we could do a whole show on that.
Yeah.
Just how crazy that was. I mean, then you have all the injuries going on, but I mean, Connor Wigman was bad, play calling was bad. There was no A Chain. I mean, it just, the
Evan
defense
Stewart
gave
was
up a
out.
ton. Yeah, Evan Stewart when he went down. Defense gave up a ton of rushing yards. If Auburn had a passing game, it'd be, that game wouldn't have been pretty. So yeah, nothing's really going well at all. So I don't
Yeah.
mean again, we're not going to jump off a cliff or anything like that, but we're also not going to sugarcoat things and tell you, A&M's just this close to fixing things. I guess, if you want the one silver lining, it was a close game and A&M was in it. And I mean, they have been in it every game except for Mississippi State this year. Had a chance to win at Alabama with the not so great play call in that last play and had a chance to win all those others. So everything but Mississippi State, they've been in, but that's no excuse. 3-7 from the number 6 team in the country to start the year is not acceptable.
Would go with inexcusable, just the way things have. I know injuries have piled up and things have certainly spiraled out of control. But this is a program in year 5 that has national championship expectations and is heading the other direction. One of the big things for me looking at this game, and I was trying to think about the way to kind of even put this game into words. We were talking about, just every game it seems to be tougher and tougher to describe. And this one, all sorts of mistakes. You find yourself fortunate to frankly be down 7-0 at halftime in a one-score
Yeah,
game, and A&M comes out and has -2 yards in the third quarter.
that's
-2 yards.
that's actually down from last week when they had 8. I'd
8.
say this is
And
not
then
a third. This is not a third quarter team by any
not a third quarter team by any stretch of the
no. So
imagination. Absolutely.
that's 6 total yards in the past 2 third quarters. That's less than ideal.
That's not good, Bob. That's not
Yeah,
good. And
exactly.
that doesn't even take into account the fumble to open the fourth quarter when Wigman looked to kind of be trying to pull the ball back in and ended up going backwards. That 14 yards counted towards the fourth quarter stat line. Otherwise, it would
Or
have
else
been
it would have
worse.
matched last week's minus. No. Oh wait, it was
Yeah,
minus. Yeah, it would have
it would have
made
been
it
-16.
0
Yeah,
out or so. Yeah.
but the
Yes.
the thing for me is just the second half adjustments is glaring. This team, it has just not been able to make second half adjustments all year long. Look totally lifeless for most of that game, honestly, until the fourth quarter when they get that interception, um, get a field goal out of it to at least keep it to a 10-3 game, and then but just otherwise not able to do a whole lot else and not able to take advantage of opportunities. One of the things about this game, Auburn gave them opportunity after opportunity. There was a missed field goal early in the third quarter. where A&M takes over near midfield, goes 3 and out, had another turnover there, went 3 and out on both of those possessions, where you're just trying to look for any sort of momentum to get the running game going, to get the passing game going, to get something going. And they just were never able to take advantage of any of those opportunities. And then, as you mentioned, to be doing it without Moose Muhammad, which was just a weird situation altogether. I think it was handled poorly. Um,
I'm,
and
I'm gonna I'm gonna
there
lay
was just so
blame
much
I'm gonna lay blame at
confusion.
both of them. But when your team is
Well, I'm going to
struggling,
blame,
there are bigger issues than whether you can wear sleeves. One, Moose,
yeah,
if it really comes down to it, take off the sleeves, help your team win. Two, Jimbo Fisher, you really need a win. You have the
yeah,
most heat in the country. A&M is written about more than anybody. Let the guy wear sleeves. Is it that big a
yeah.
deal? Like, I understand creating a culture of respect and things like that, but it's sleeves, it's a uniform. And you know what? They're warm, they keep you from getting burnt. I mean, it's not like they're just there for show. So just
Yeah,
ridiculous. The
it's
entire thing,
something
ridiculous.
it's something he's worn his entire career, as he mentioned. Put up a tweet after the game. There was all sorts of confusion during the game about why he was out, what was going on. The reporters tried to get an answer during the game, didn't get much. I think they asked any reason why, you know,
When they said, "Hey,
Moose.
is he available?" Yep, that's
Yup.
it. Like, it was just that, just that
It
sort
was
of
just
smug
that,
deal.
but to go on Twitter afterwards and air it out, I think didn't help the situation at all. For me, one of the things is it just speaks to, and disarray was a word that was kind of presented to Jimbo Fisher today. Does with the suspensions going on and the losing Anthony Hill last week and the 6 game losing streak, does this program have a feeling of disarray? And to me, Saturday
What did he
night
say? I hope he said yes.
he did not say no. He
There's
said
no way
that
he said
he
yes, but
said he said that recruiting was going well, which is certainly something that I
that
think
you're allowed to say. Yeah, that's
I
something
think
you're
you're
allowed to
allowed to
say.
say you're allowed to say that. Now,
Jimbo, he-
if you're going to if you're trying to keep the perception that things are going well a month out from signing day, I understand that he's not going to come out and say, "Yeah, we're terrible and recruiting is down the drain and the season's down the drain." I don't expect him to say that. But when issues like Moose Muhammad happen and it airs out in the way that it did, and it comes out that it's about arm sleeves, and it just and all sorts of confusion about, well, is there a rule about arm sleeves? What is the rule about arm sleeves? Why does the suspension need to be what it was, or benching need to be what it was? It just leads to that question of dysfunction and confusion and all the things that were going on. To me, that could have been handled in a much better way on both ends and not have to play out in the way it did. And whether that's senior leaders pulling him aside and being able to talk with him more about where that rule came from. Jimbo Fisher did say that there was a arm sleeves rule on Monday, but was not at all getting into any more into it. Said it's an internal matter and it's being settled. But
he
to
was
me, it just
upset that
speaks to,
he was asked about
yeah,
the
he kind
question.
of had
Did he
like he
not
kind of
think that was going to be the very first question? It's what
yeah,
everybody's talking about, like
that's what
the
it
sleeve gate, and he's just, I can't believe you're asking me about this. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what people are talking about. That's what
yeah.
people want to know about. Like, don't be dismissive on that when you know it's coming. Like, you can fawn, but that's not one that you can
Have
just,
something ready to go, and
yeah. He can have an opening
there's
statement, and then I'm not taking any other questions on it.
yeah,
Something, but yeah, don't just
just to
pretend like,
address what
oh,
happened Saturday night. It's been handled. We're moving forward, and it's been discussed. But again, it speaks to the feeling and the appearance, and appearance is everything. And it's true. Everything gets blown out of proportion when you're on a 6 game losing streak, when you're on your longest losing streak in 50 years. Whether you believe it's the case or not, it does get blown out of proportion and blown to a bigger degree.
oh, for sure. Also, this has nothing to do with anything. I just noticed you have your social media account and your username, and I was going to yell at you for not putting mine, but then I remembered I put in my own name, so that's on
Yeah,
me, man.
actually, thanks to the Auburn folks, I did a pregame show with them on Saturday, and they threw my social media in there, so I just kept it and rolled with it. But I'll have yours in for next week. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
I think it's on
We'll
me. That one's on me.
yeah, we'll be back after Mighty. We'll be back after UMass this weekend. At this point, A&M
Hopefully,
is
hopefully discussing a win. If not, maybe we'll take some calls
we,
live and
yeah,
see
we'll
what.
take some live call-in shows.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
get on here and we'll start getting the reaction from
yeah. We'll
from
see
other
how it goes.
people.
I
And
mean,
then
okay, this
Ellis,
is not me as an insider here. This is just me with rational sense. He can't survive a UMass loss. Like, there's no way. There's just no way. So
yeah,
there
like that.
has to be a win there.
There is an immense amount of frustration heading into these final two games. You're already sitting at 3-7. That would just be that they need to win, not just they need to win convincingly. This needs to be a strong performance in all three phases. That's what Jimbo Fisher kind of mentioned today, that he really wanted to see this upcoming weekend. Wanted to look back though at that question. So mentioned recruiting, mentioned the transfer portal that he talked about. Program appearance of being in disarray. Where do you think it's how far to that end do you think it is, or how is it somewhere in the middle?
I mean, so you and I are not in the locker room every day,
Yeah.
or ever, we're not in the locker room, but we talk to people and, we can see things. I think the locker room's not in a good place. I don't think A&M's in like somewhere they can't recover from, but I think the locker room's not a good place. And a lot of it is, this number one recruiting class. Yeah. I mean, that set records on paper, but pretty much every 5-star national top 100 kid, I mean, they're all going to have, they're going to be a bit of a prima donna. It's just what happens. I mean, you've been the best, not like the best of the best. Not only have you been a star, you've been the best of the best your whole life. People talking about you nationally, and then you come in and just, think rules don't apply, and there's not the senior leadership to sort of put them in their place. And they're getting more NIL than the people who have proven themselves on the field already. So I think there's a bit of just looking back and I mean, jealousy is not the right word, but you know what I'm saying? Like, when you have the veterans look at that and just being like, I can't believe these guys. And then, they're sort of just running roughshod and doing whatever they want. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons it's in the place, but it's there. It's not great. The locker room's not great. And then the product on the field is not great. So, yeah, A&M's not in a good place. There needs to be wholesale changes in the offseason. With the coaching staff, you need a play caller, and somebody needs to vet that play caller. So it's not just somebody that will do, the same offense. It has to be, somebody that's going to think outside the box, because you need that. You have some talent. So, yeah, I do think disarray is a strong word, but you know what? It's actually probably a good, an apt description.
It's an apt description of what's happened this year for me, and it's you. I was asked early this year during a show, about the heat that this A&M program was facing, and this came after the Appalachian State game, and was doing a piece on that, and said, look, when you sign the number one class and when you sign back to back classes like A&M has, that comes with expectations, and when you don't meet those expectations, that criticism will follow. When you're signing a historic class, people are expecting you to, at least at the very minimum, reach a bowl
Yeah.
and be trending much closer to that 10-win mark. And so when that doesn't happen, that does give the impression that things are going sideways, things are a mess. When you have a 5-star linebacker decommit last week, things like that. I wouldn't say recruiting is going well. Is there a chance they can turn it around over the next month? Sure. But is it at the level that it's been at the past couple of cycles? Absolutely not. And, they're struggling to generate much momentum. Multiple of their commits were on other college campuses this past weekend as a result of some of those struggles that they've had.
Mhm.
And, it's opened the door for other programs to come in. So I think I'm with you on when this season ends in 2 weeks against LSU, there needs to be a look at every aspect of the program, whether it's from talent acquisition, how they're evaluating the portal. Jimbo Fisher once again talked about the portal and how difficult it, or how it's, there's certain players that seem to know where they're going before they.
Again, we talked about this last week. If let's say other schools are doing that, well, then A&M needs to find the same loopholes or eat just the same whatever
Yeah,
around
and
that. If
find
if these guys are entering, then do do that. Catch it.
Do
You
that.
just put together a
And
class. You've proven you can keep up with the Joneses in high school. Do
yeah,
it in the portal too.
and
Sorry,
to his
getting a
point,
break.
and this was asked a couple weeks ago. What confidence do you have that kids in the portal will want to come to Texas A&M? Listen, there's going to be players in the portal if you're recruiting them and able to talk to them and get in with them. There's kids who have the opportunity to play in the SEC. You have the opportunity to sell them on a chance to make an impact and turn things around. There's going to be interest in the portal. I don't think that's necessarily a concern for me. There's going to be kids that want to come here and make an impact. And so, you've
Yeah.
got to look at how you're evaluating guys in the portal, how you're acquiring talent, how you're building the roster. Everything needs to be on the table. And so I think with changes, things can still get back on the right track, but that requires a hard look at everything involved in this program. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk a little more recruiting after a quick break and look at some of those A&M commits that were in action during the first round of the playoffs. Welcome back into the Gig'em 24/7 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined by Brian Perroni as always. Brian, I know you were able to get out last week and see Ashton Funk play in the first round of the playoffs. Just what was your impression getting to see him?
So I hadn't seen him since we saw him at A&M's camp over the summer,
Mm-hmm.
and he had his huddle private, so it was hard to see. So there were no junior highlights available. So getting a chance to see him in person, he's really grown as a player since last year. He's 6'6", 300 pounds, pretty long arms, and he plays left tackle for them, and I think he can stay at tackle at A&M. He had a better second half than the first, and I had posted after the first half some of the issues, not really drive blocking as much, letting guys use the quickness to get inside him. But for the most part, he won his reps and, was really good there for Tompkins. And, A&M's got to be trying to look with him and see if there's a way they can get him on a fast track to reclassify to 23. That's not going to happen, but, they'd love that just to get him on campus. So, good player. It's A&M's sort of missing pure tackles on campus, and I think he's a guy that is one.
No doubt. It's one of those guys we talked about last week. Such an important player to have in the class and be as committed as he is. For those that missed it on the site, kind of mentioned his recruitment's 100% done. He's an Aggie legacy. Had made his trips around and picked up offers from several programs, and including Alabama, Michigan, just to name a few. And is a guy that really loves the A&M program and wants to be a part of it. Also had the chance to see Javon Thomas. Good news there. He mentioned texting the A&M staff that he was going to be cleared to play on Friday night in South Oak Cliffs game against Mansfield Summit, a 12-7 game in cold and windy conditions at Kincaid Stadium in Dallas, and just a really not a pleasant game to watch, to be honest with you. And not really a pretty offensive showing on either side, but South Oak Cliff got the job done with a late punt return by Randy Reese to move on to the second round. They'll face Lovejoy in the second round, and something tells me they're going to need probably more than 12 points.
They need more than 12 points for sure.
It's Lovejoy. Like Lovejoy will go up and down the field, and so that's going to be a test to see how they go against that South Oak Cliff defense, though. But I think the first piece of good news on him is that he was healthy. He's battled nagging injuries from a back. It was just hamstring.
If people haven't followed it, he's missed the entire regular season. Now the plan was for him to make it back for the playoffs all along.
Correct.
And he probably could have returned sooner, but they only let every district game except for one was a shutout, so they didn't need him in district play.
And he kind of, when I spoke to him after the Adamson game, he kind of mentioned, listen, if you saw, it was 56-0, I believe, in that game, and it was 49-0 at halftime. And he kind of mentioned, listen, with the way you see these games going, I can afford to take my time and afford to take a couple more weeks to make sure I'm fully healthy and then get back for the playoffs. I think he'll be the first to tell you a little bit rusty. Um, was playing mostly offense. That's really where South Oak Cliff needs him at this point. Is a guy that projects as a defensive back, cornerback at the next level, but was playing running back for South Oak Cliff. And, I think he's going to continue to get better as time goes along. He's really dangerous with the ball in his hands. Was a guy that played running back earlier in high school as well. So certainly has experience on that type of on that side of the ball. As for recruiting, got to talk to him a little there as well. And, the truth of the matter is with the way A&M's played, schools are going to continue to come after him. TCU, Texas, LSU, Oklahoma were a few of the, and Texas Tech were a few of the schools he mentioned. We're continuing to come after him. And it does sound like he's going to be busy in December taking some visits. He's never taken an official visit before. So,
yeah, so A&M has a chance to host him and several other commits.
He's working on getting his A&M official visit set up in December. TCU and Texas are also looking to get him on campus, but did say that he thinks the A&M official would come last, which is probably beneficial to be able to counter some of those other pitches other schools have made. But still feel good about him being able to keep him in the class. It's just going to be a battle, and
you've got to show him something on the field.
They've got to show him something. And, I talked with him Friday night about what he wants to see from A&M over the last month. And he said, I just want to see them find a way to pull out a game like South Oak Cliff just did. It wasn't 7, it was 12-7. It was ugly. There were turnovers, but
I think they only had like 120 total yards or something.
I think they got outgained.
This is South Oak Cliff. A&M was also about the same.
About the same. Never a good thing to have to clarify that
yes.
part, but it was about 260 to 120. And he said, look, I want to see them find a way to get over the hump. And so that's something. He's going to be back in town probably for the LSU game. I know fans kind of look at that as a game and say, well, that game doesn't really matter. They're not going to a bowl anyway. But for recruits and impressions, if they can come out and play well there, that'll still certainly help probably in that situation as well.
Yeah, and I mean, LSU's going to the SEC championship game no matter what, but A&M could keep them from the playoffs. They still have a chance of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So, that's a nice thing. I mean, LSU is A&M's rival. I think when Texas comes back out, this is going to get booed by everybody. I mean, Texas will probably eventually become the rival again, but LSU is A&M's rival. The guys get up for that game. It'll be at Kyle Field at night, and I know fans are frustrated with the season and say they're going to skip it. They won't. There'll be a ton of them there, just like there were against Ole Miss and Florida, mm-hmm. and it's going to be a great environment. So A&M has to do something. They have to look like they belong on that field. Not necessarily win. I mean, I think they can because I think LSU has gotten, pulled out some close victories that they didn't necessarily, end up getting. And A&M's had some close losses. And it's possible that they can, but they just have to at least show some signs of life in that game.
They do. And, playing UMass this week, we'll see how many guys they maybe give another week to see if they can get back for that LSU game. But I think they'll certainly want to finish out on a high note. And you're right, playing LSU is certainly going to bring out a lot of, some of those rivalry feelings. And, we'll see how A&M kind of closes it out. I think they've got some ground to make up, just talking to some people with Peyton Bowen too. If they can make a statement with a game like that against LSU, I don't think this season has necessarily helped in the pursuit of Peyton Bowen, but still a month to go until the early signing period. And that'll be A&M's last chance to kind of leave an impression on recruits as the A&M staff starts to hit the road. They're going to hit the road to Denton Guyer. They're going to go to South Oak Cliff. They're going to have in-home visits. And that is the good news when you look at some of those guys, is they'll have a chance to have it and basically an in-home visit and official visit with Javon Thomas. But certainly going to be a lot of recruiting to kind of dive into over the next month, and we will be here to cover it all as a extremely disappointing season comes to an end here in 2 weeks against LSU. Thanks again to everybody who joined us. Again, a reminder to give us a like and share on Facebook, on YouTube, should I say, and a 5-star review if you're listening to this on Spotify or the Apple Podcast. Until next time, we'll see you guys next week.